What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily, and in this video, we're going to be comparing the new iPhone SE to the original iPhone SE from 2016. Now, in some ways, this isn't exactly a fair comparison. I know that. These two phones come from basically different eras. They're very different devices. But at the same time, I do know a handful of people who still have the original iPhone SE, who still use it as their main smartphone. And this new iPhone SE might just finally be the phone that entices them to upgrade. So in this video, I'm going to go over everything new with the new iPhone SE. I'll talk about all the major changes and upgrades you'd be getting if you went with this phone. And I'm also going to explain why I think the new iPhone SE is the best value iPhone right now. And it is absolutely the iPhone to get if you're considering a new phone. So first things first, let's talk about the price. When it launched, the original iPhone SE retailed for $399. And now, 4 years later, Apple stuck with that same price for the new iPhone SE as well. I think that's a great decision, and obviously this makes the new iPhone SE the most affordable iPhone Apple offers right now. In fact, I'd argue that this time around, the new iPhone SE is an even better value. iPhones have really only gone up in price, and $399 back in 2016 was still kind of expensive. Now, with the iPhone 11 starting at $699 and the 11 Pros retailing for a minimum of $1,000, $399 for the new iPhone SE is a really attractive price point. I think if you've been holding out on getting a genuine deal for a new iPhone, it isn't going to get any better than this, in my opinion. Physically, these two iPhones are obviously very different, and I think the most significant thing that sets these phones apart is the size. The original iPhone SE from 2016 is a 4-inch device, incredibly small by today's smartphone standards, but probably one of the reasons why people like this phone so much. Its compact form factor makes it easy to use with one hand and comfortable inside a pocket, and you aren't going to find a phone this size today. The new iPhone SE is a larger 4.7-inch device, and it seems like this new phone is just massive, and by comparison it kind of is. But at the same time, this is the smallest iPhone Apple offers right now, and it's always sort of been the next size up from the SE. It's technically modeled after the iPhone 6, and when Apple realized back then that people were still holding on to their iPhone 5s and 5Ss, they gave people the SE as an upgrade to those phones, who at the same time didn't want a bigger device. Although, I guess if you didn't want a larger phone back then, you probably still don't want one now. But honestly, there's just something about having a bigger display and more screen real estate that I think makes it worth it. It's nicer to watch YouTube videos on a bigger screen, it's easier to play games, and yeah, it may not be as comfortable in the hand, but this is as small of an iPhone as you can get right now, and I think the benefits outweigh the negatives. As far as the screen quality and resolution, you're getting a bit of an upgrade here too. The original iPhone SE offers a 640 by 1136 resolution display and packs 326 pixels per inch. The new iPhone SE has a higher resolution, 750 by 1334 display with the same 326 pixels per inch. They're both IPS LCD Retina panels, but obviously over the years Apple has improved their displays quite a bit. The new iPhone SE has a brighter, more vivid display. Colors pop a bit more, everything looks more punchy. And I think it's a subtle but still noticeable bump up from the original SE. It's not a huge step up, but still something worth considering. When it comes to the design, once again we see a lot of major differences. The original iPhone SE I think actually still looks good. This all aluminum housing with glass accents is a premium setup, and the flat sides and chamfered edges paired with metal buttons and machined details keep this phone looking good when compared to a lot of today's smartphones. It was a flagship design back then, but you didn't have to spend a lot to get this nice of a phone. And this is the same idea with the new iPhone SE. This phone is modeled after the iPhone 8, which again, just a couple of years ago was a flagship phone. You've got an all-glass build with matte painted aluminum sides. Everything about it conveys the same sense of premium Apple design and materials that you'd expect, and there's nothing cheap about the phone at all. But you're not paying those flagship prices to get this premium design. And when it comes to just the materials and build quality alone, I don't know any other new phone that sells for $400 that gives you what this phone does. One thing I think original iPhone SE owners will love, but critics love to hate, is the classic home button design and large bezels across the front. On the original iPhone SE, this is what iPhones looked like in 2016. But on this new iPhone SE, the design couldn't be more dated. We've been in the Touch ID home buttonless era for a while now, and this phone just isn't up to 2020 standards. But at the same time, having the good old fingerprint unlock and an actual home button is really nice. It's honestly something I miss, and for folks who've preferred it on their other iPhones, they'll feel right at home. You have to keep in mind, after all, that if you have like an iPhone 10 or one of the new iPhones, this iPhone SE isn't marketed towards you. It's intended for people who still have the SE, or maybe the 6 or 7 or 8, who want a new phone, but still prefer the home button and Touch ID setup. And that's exactly what Apple delivers here. Also, you're getting a little quicker and more consistent fingerprint sensor on the new iPhone SE too, so I think that's a nice touch. Taking a look around, there are a couple of things I do want to point out. Obviously, you've got the same buttons all around the phone, just placed a little differently. The volume controls and silent switch are still on the left, but the power button has moved from the top of the original phone to the side on the new one. Down at the bottom, there's the same old Lightning port as before, but the big difference is that the new iPhone SE has no headphone jack. This isn't anything new to iPhone specifically. These phones haven't had headphone jacks for years, but coming specifically from the original iPhone SE to the new one, that is something you're going to lose. In regards to the speaker setup, one thing you gain is dual stereo speakers. The new iPhone SE has a speaker down below and an additional one in the earpiece, versus just the one bottom speaker on the original SE. I think iPhones have some of the best external speakers on any smartphone, and that's exactly the case with the new iPhone SE. Playing content out loud sounds significantly better. There's no comparison, and I think that's another nice benefit in going with the newer phone. Another big benefit on the new iPhone SE is the battery. So first off, in regards to charging speeds, while the new iPhone SE does ship with the same small 5-watt charger, it does support USB-C fast charging from an 18-watt power brick. So if you have access to one of those, or maybe want to go out and buy one for yourself, you can reap the benefits of significantly quicker charging. And the new iPhone SE supports wireless Qi charging too, so if you're into that, you can juice up that way as well, which is great. When it comes to battery size, again, you're going to see a decent benefit going with the new iPhone SE. The original phone had a 1624 milliamp battery, while the new SE has a slightly larger 1828 capacity battery. Now, it doesn't sound like a huge increase, but there are a couple other factors in play. The new iPhone SE has better internal specs as well that better optimize battery usage. And the actual battery itself has obviously improved since 2016. The technology behind it is better and more updated. I know a lot of folks have had some trouble with the battery life on the original SE, especially now after so many years. So I think you're going to notice a big change with the new SE. This is a phone that can obviously last a full day and then some, and I think the whole array of battery and charging improvements with the new phone will make a huge difference by comparison. Speaking of those internal specs, we obviously have some significant differences here too. When the original iPhone SE launched, Apple decided to offer the top-of-the-line specs from the just-released iPhone 6s into their cheaper phone. And once again, with the new iPhone SE, that's exactly what Apple did. The original SE has Apple's A9 chipset and 2 gigs of RAM. It also started at a minuscule 16 gigs of internal storage and went all the way up to 128. The new iPhone SE packs Apple's most powerful A13 Bionic chipset and GPU, 3 gigs of RAM, and either 64, 128, or 256 gigabytes of internal storage. And while I do think all the other spec increases are significant, the most overlooked benefit I think is probably starting with 4 times as much internal storage. The processor on the new iPhone SE is the same one from Apple's $1,000 plus flagship phones, and that is the single standout feature that makes the iPhone SE the best value. It's a lightning fast phone with flagship specs, but basically just at a huge discount. While both iPhones support the latest iOS 13 update, you're going to find the new SE is a bit quicker in every way. And as you push the phone harder with more apps, graphics heavy games, and everything else, the new iPhone SE can handle it all. I don't think I can understate just how big of a deal it was that Apple offered their best specs in their cheapest iPhone, both back then and right now. And more than anything else, this also makes the new iPhone SE a solid long-term investment, just like the original. Keep in mind, the iPhone SE from 2016 is still supported with the latest iOS update, like I said. It's still getting updates more than 4 years later, and rumors suggest it may even get iOS 14 later this year. This is something Apple does that no other company even comes close to. Offering so many years of software updates ensures you get the maximum value out of your phone years down the line, and that's once again what you get with the new SE. I suspect this phone will have a 4 or 5 or maybe even 6-year lifespan. I know a lot of folks have kept their original SE since day one and have gotten everything out of it up to this point. If you're thinking about upgrading, you can be assured that this iPhone SE, the new one, will last just as long and likely even longer than the original. The final huge upgrade original SE owners will experience when jumping to the new one is with the cameras. The rear camera on the original SE is good but not great. It's a 12 megapixel f2.2 aperture lens, and yes, it does have a lot of great capabilities, even 4K video recording, but it's nothing compared to the cameras of today. The new SE retains its single lens setup. It offers a 12 megapixel f1.8 aperture lens, but everything here is improved, from the lens hardware to the software experience and shooting modes to the internal specs that help process the images too. You're getting additional shooting capabilities like portrait mode, and regular old pictures by themselves and videos too look significantly better. They're more balanced, more detailed, and overall I think the difference is night and day. It goes even further with the front selfie camera too. The original iPhone SEs was dated even when that phone launched. The 1.2 megapixel 720p resolution shooter is just awful. Now on this new SE, you have a selfie camera you can actually use. A 7 megapixel lens with HDR, 1080p video, more portrait shooting, and just a significantly better and more capable camera altogether. Obviously, the new iPhone SE is better than the original in every single way. There's no debating that. There isn't a single thing on this phone that hasn't improved, upgraded, or was otherwise changed. And if you're coming from the original, I think you're really going to enjoy the updates. On its own, the new iPhone SE is the best value iPhone you can buy right now, like I said. There's no question about that. I think the only thing that's left to think about is whether or not you're ready to finally make the jump to a bigger phone. I know the size of the original SE makes it special. You can't get that with any other phone anymore. But if you can handle it, I think the new iPhone SE is well worth the minor inconvenience of its bigger size. And if you've been holding out, this is finally the phone you should absolutely upgrade to. So there you go. That's everything you need to know about the new iPhone SE if you're thinking about upgrading from the original. If you do have the 2016 iPhone SE, let me know what you think of it. Will you finally upgrade? Leave a comment down below. I'd love to know your thoughts, of course. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.